Well, it's that time again, that time when we take a quick diversion from our usual watering hole to find our way into a conversation about COVID, viruses, vaccines, and injury. All the things that drive people mad these days. I'm joined by Greg and Ken, although you're not going to be able to hear Ken because he's off. Well, you can. Say hi, Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Yeah. Could you hear that?
Probably not. So anyways, I'm your host, Chris, and this is Three Pastors Walk Into a Bar. It's time for everyone's favorite new segment of the show, the disclaimer. And as a special treat today, we will be having Greg read our disclaimer. I know everybody. Calm down, everyone. Calm down.
Can I get a drum roll?
Chugga.
Sounds like a tugboat.
I don't think we have a drum roll.
He's looking. I don't have
There's
one.
no
Okay.
drum roll.
The views.
You could do a rim shot, like.
I'll just put my radio voice on and,
all right.
and read it.
Hit it.
I can give you air horns.
Do it.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that. That makes it feel special.
Air horns and opinions.
Makes it feel special. The disclaimer.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the respective speakers and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, policies, or doctrines of Ethel Baptist Church and its members.
Should that be and or its members? Or just and?
Well, it is.
I guess
now.
and
it
is
should
fine.
be now. Yeah,
I don't know.
We're
Just a
all
thought.
included in one big happy family.
Nobody really cares anyways.
No.
They just want to hear the disclaimer read. You know what I mean? From what I'm understanding from all the feedback is, it's like people are just like, when are we getting to the disclaimer? That's what people are wanting to know. We could probably just do a show and just read the disclaimer and then shut it down and be like, okay, we're done.
Hope I did it justice, Ken.
Good job, Greg.
Good job.
Yeah.
All right.
I think you did pretty good.
Ken said, "Good job, Greg." Just so you know.
Is that what he said?
He even gave me a thumbs up.
Is that for the benefit of our listening audience?
Our listening audience, yes.
Ken did a thumbs up. He is also looking at his phone right now.
When he's raising his eyebrows and doing all kinds of weird stuff.
By the way, pray for Ken because he's got to have a root canal tomorrow.
Yes.
Is it tomorrow?
Yeah.
He's got to have a root canal tomorrow. I offered to do it with vice grips, but
that would be an extraction, not a root canal.
I mean, potato. Yeah.
Either way, the pain should be gone. Demolition.
Stick of dynamite. All right. So it's, believe it or not, it's been 4 years since COVID.
Wow.
It doesn't seem real, does it? Let that soak in for a minute because it doesn't seem like that long ago that we were doing like these little video snippets from the church for that first like 30 days when we didn't know if it was a thing or not. I mean, I actually like those. We could do church like that as far as I'm concerned. It was pretty nice.
I remember we went and we thought, okay, we got to have 6 feet between chairs, blah, blah, blah. We could fit 9 people in the church.
Yeah, it was pretty stupid. Yeah. And then we figured out it was a big nothing burger and we were just like, no, whatever. So then we just started meeting again because that's how we roll in North Idaho. So the pandemic and the ensuing vaccine controversy has been the news almost continually throughout this whole period now of the new normal, as it were. And there's a lot of people that are kind of like coming out talking about this now. Like I was just listening I was on Rumble earlier, and I was watching that documentary that you had sent me. And then I was listening to Russell Brand for a little bit, and he has become a massive advocate for the anti-vaccine kind of
Culture.
I don't know if it's culture platform, I mean, they're really like a anti-establishment kind of thing too, but he's really come out, and he's one of the only people, other than maybe Tucker and maybe just a couple others, that are really talking about this massive surge of instant deaths that are taking place. I mean, it's what were heart attacks up globally 400%, something like that. I mean, it's the numbers are terrifying. But in any case, sometimes it can seem like you're kind of stuck in 2020 because it's they just keep rehashing it. But it needs to be talked about it because we don't really want to rehash history, but we want to respond to it. You pretty much know a lot of the things that we're going to talk about here today. There's going to be a lot that you maybe don't know. But perhaps the most intriguing thing about the crisis is the largely unexplained phenomenon of dying unexpectedly from heart failure or with unusual clots in their arteries and veins. So I didn't know how to take this at first, Ken. You put in Leviticus 17:14. I didn't know if this was a joke or but for the life of every creature is its blood. The blood is its life. I mean, that is true. I mean, that's 100% true.
I like it.
It just seemed a little on point.
Well, blood ain't healthy and people are dying.
So a growing number of scientists, doctors, death care workers, which would be morticians, coroners, things like that. Non-traditional media suspect that the virus or certain vaccines are to blame. Some experts, including public health officials, other than scientists, doctors, and major media, dismiss that theory as unfounded conspiracy. And the whole world seems to be searching for the answer. So we here at 3P don't have much to add to that.
Thank you for showing up.
Yeah, because honestly, all we really know is what we have read and what we have seen. But the good news is that we have some guests with us today that are here to share with us their firsthand experience and hopefully shed some light on this controversial topic. Because, the thing is that we can listen to Russell Brand and we can listen to Tucker Carlson and we can listen to all these guys and they can give us all this evidence and all the stuff that we should be getting. But ultimately, it's not ever going to be more impactful than someone who has gone through it and is seeing it firsthand. First person testimony is powerful. And so with that being said, we got Craig and Kim joining us today. You go by Kim or Kimberly? Kimberly. Okay. So we got Craig and Kimberly with us here today. Now, they're members of our church, and I've told them that if they say something that I don't disagree with, then we send them down to the Inquisitional Chamber.
That you do disagree with.
Right. Yeah. So do not disagree. Do? You know, it doesn't matter because I just made all that up anyway.
Yeah, I know.
So
disagree as much as
do whatever you want.
It's fun.
Yeah, we got the disclaimer earlier.
Yeah, right. So why don't you guys start by telling us how you kind of ended up coming into this knowledge of this, because you've got quite a history with the vaccine going back quite a ways, right?
So, how did we get introduced into this? I got vaccinated.
Right.
Can you, can we just, I want a little bit of her background. Who is she? You know,
do we really want to know that?
I
mean, that's awfully
and I'm
nosy.
not, and it's not in here, so
It's awfully nosy.
I know.
So
Maybe she don't want to share who she is.
Maybe she was one of the Three Stooges.
I just feel like I want to fight with you today for some reason. I don't know why.
Let it.
All right. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
So I am a local nurse practitioner. I've been in the field of medicine now for about 16 years. We were new to North Idaho, I guess. How long have we been here now? 2.5 years. Moved here from
It's only
South.
been that long?
Yeah.
Seems like
2.5
it's been
years.
longer than that.
Nope.
Being around Craig, it's like, you know what?
Yeah.
Time goes slow.
Seems
Moved
like
here.
I've seen Craig's face walking around here for a long time, seems like.
We just kind of blended in.
Oh, that's a good way to do it.
Moved here from South Carolina. I was actually out here in 2021, the beginning of 2021, doing a residency for a family practice rotation, and was being highly pressured into getting vaccinated. At the same time, on the East Coast, my mom has a pretty severe lung disease, and we were taking care of our elderly grandparents at the same time. So between the combination of the three and some other things going on, I was heavily pressured into doing it.
Because the prevailing wisdom was you should get vaccinated to protect those that are around you. That was kind of like,
And
Were you, Kimberly, were you ever felt forced into it because of your career path, being a nurse practitioner?
I mean, I guess so. If I would have been in a different field, I probably
Wouldn't have felt
wouldn't have felt that. But I mean, I definitely was pressured into it. I went around to multiple colleagues, people that I trusted, asked them what they thought about it, asked them to explain what it was, tell me more about it. And they did as what they had been told. They kind of basically regurgitated what they had been told, and was just highly pressured based off of my family situation, which, I mean, that's how do you get to a person?
Yeah.
That's how you get to a person, is the people you want to protect the most.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom, whose lung condition at that point, if she would have gotten COVID, she probably would have died. Ironically, she's never gotten COVID and she's not vaccinated. My grandpa, he actually, right around the time of my vaccination, we had gotten word that he had COVID. And they said, well, had he been vaccinated, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
He had already actually had one dose. I didn't know about it at that time, Pfizer. And then 48 hours later, he was dead. So that was utilized to really push, to kind of drive it home that I needed to do this. So
Do you have the Pfizer?
I got Pfizer. Yes. I got Pfizer here in Coeur d'Alene, and within 48 hours, within 5 minutes after my first injection, I went from a heart rate of 85 to 45. And my iWatch recorded the entire thing. I tried to make excuses in my head what was going on. I couldn't tell what was going on. I ended up with a very large bruise on my left arm, which was the arm they vaccinated me in. Went home. The irony is the night before I was doing it, I had a lot of reservation about doing it. I didn't feel comfortable doing it. I didn't want to do it. I prayed about it and felt like, the Holy Spirit was telling me to protect myself. So I took aspirin and Benadryl, and went about the next pretty much month with no real issues until I got my second vaccine. When I got my second vaccine, I was in the ER here 48 hours later, tachycardic, hypertensive, chest pain. And they pretty much just said, the doctor at that time whispered in my ear, do not stop taking aspirin. And that was it. They sent me on my way. Within a month of being vaccinated, Craig had come to pick me up. We were on our way through Montana, and we had stopped to have lunch. And at that point, I started having bouts of like sudden, really high tachycardias in the 170s, just no reason at all.
Wow.
My legs would feel like they were lead weight. Um, and we had just finished having lunch. We walked to the car. I opened the door, and all I remember was opening the door, and I guess I fell forward, passed out, and ended up into the floorboards of the car. And that started kind of the period of the cardiac symptoms for me. But I ended up with almost all of the stereotypical issues, tachycardia, later diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, otherwise known as POTS, and abnormal uterine bleeding, which led to a hysterectomy. What else?
Goodness.
Severe neurological issues. I've got some pretty bad neurological stuff going on.
GI.
GI, yeah, GI. I ended up with an emergency surgery on my stomach and my intestines, which 2 weeks of failure to diagnose. I ended up with 3 large abscesses and had to have some major reconstructive surgery from that, which they then told me was a rare opportunistic infection that they typically do not see in healthy people. They typically see in AIDS patients. So
what were your thoughts, Craig? I mean, like right at the moment of like you guys were headed home, you stopped to get lunch, and she's having this event. Like, were you thinking at that time like this is vaccine related, or was there even even something?
I think we had inclinations that it possibly was because I was on the East Coast, and the only thing I would get texts back and forth with her saying, "Hey, I'm in the ER. I'm having all this heart issues going on," and my senses were kind of heightened to her condition.
Yeah.
And I watched it. We were walking down this hill to our car. We're having a conversation. We're getting it. All our kids is piling in the car, and I look over across the vehicle, and I could see her eyes just roll up into the back of her head, and she just nosedives into the car, and I immediately race around. I didn't know if she was dying.
Yeah.
I looked at my oldest in the back seat, and I said, dial 911 as I'm trying to revive her, trying to look for a pulse. So it was scary.
Was she was out?
She was out cold.
And was there a heartbeat? There was a pulse?
There was. Yeah. So I finally got a pulse, and I could see that she was breathing. So, but it was, and we're in Montana. We live in South Carolina, and we're on our way home, and I don't know where the hospital is. So, all these things are racing through my mind of what are we going to do? I don't know what street I'm on. And I got a car full of kids. They're witnessing. So it was pretty scary.
Yeah. So this trip up to Idaho, I guess you were going to Idaho, right? For your to look into what was it, a residency or whatever?
So no, it was a residency. I was doing a family practice rotation. Hopefully,
okay.
We were at that point in his career where he was retired, and as much as people want to say, South Carolina is really conservative, and we had just gotten through the elections and witnessed firsthand election fraud, and they were so locked down. Everybody was wearing masks. Matter of fact, one of our oldest just went back to school in person this last fall. Like, they were masked up. Classes weren't happening. Our kids were being subjected to an education system where they were not being educated. We actually had to hold one of our daughters back. But South Carolina just was not South Carolina anymore. They raised our property taxes up by 3 times to cover the money from shutting the downtown, which was a traveling kind of industry. So, I was thinking when I came out here, this could be the place because it was closer to family, but yet far enough away from the places we really didn't want to be. I had done my due diligence. I'd read up on the area, felt comfortable about it, and got the opportunity to come out here and felt like it was the safer option for me. Like somehow I wasn't going to be forced into this by coming out here. Like I thought I was going to be safe.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be safe. And then I thought, okay, if I could get a job before I left, then we would be locked in, ready, dialed in, and we can just get back to South Carolina, get the household. And that was the kind of the plan in my head when, when I was thinking of things, and it kind of worked out that way in a way, but yeah, it didn't.
Yeah.
I got vaccinated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Changed your whole life.
Now, did you get vaccinated as well, Craig?
I did not. Yeah. So, my story. When I was at this time, I had just retired from the military, and I had gotten a job with the government as a contractor. So I fell underneath the the normal, or all the not the normal, but the mandates. So the military and government contracting companies were forced to with the new administration to get jabbed. So I after this happened, in the military, I always got vaccinated with whatever they had rolled out.
Right.
I deployed, and so I had to get all sorts of stuff, anthrax, all that stuff. So when she asked me, "Hey, what do you think about this stuff?" I was like, "Man, it's just a whatever," And so I was getting ready to get in line. So, but when all this happened, all that stuff came to a screeching halt, because I saw what was going on. So, I did a religious exemption, and my company allowed it as long as the government was good with it, and I never got any pushback after that to go any farther. They kept asking me, several times, to update my vaccination status, and I stiff-armed that for as long as I could, and then they gave us a deadline. And
you wipe your brow a lot now, going whew.
Sort of, but I don't think we're not immune to it anymore. The folks that got vaccinated certainly have direct issues, but I think as she talks about it, nobody's safe anymore. She just took my blood yesterday and looked at it, and mine was crazy.
Crazy.
And
What do you mean?
The stuff that's in it. She'll be able to tell you, all the things that she sees. But early on, she could tell people who were vaccinated from the unvaccinated just by looking at what's in your blood. Now you can't. And I think mine is even worse than hers.
Why is that? What's the story on that?
well, I mean, I'm on a highly active, what I call a sequestration protocol. That's kind of my term I've coined. It's basically my body is now producing spike protein. So I'm on a protocol that binds spike as I'm producing it, and I excrete it. Not out my mouth necessarily, but how you excrete things.
Okay. That makes no sense to me. What are you saying?
So my body produces spike.
What's spike?
Spike is the protein. It's the component of this so-called I'm trying to be careful here how I word things. Virus.
Okay.
That we were told the virus. It is the component of it that is causing all the inflammation and all the problems. So it's the way it looks under a microscope is it's round, and it's actually it was named Corona for a reason because it had like a crown-like appearance. Well, it's got these spikes, projections on it. And what I tell people is it likes to basically bind. It likes to get into soft tissue. It goes into your blood vessels. It rips into the endothelial lining, the actual lining of your blood vessels, which we actually have protection. It's like hair-like protection, finger-like protections that are on the inside of your blood vessels. Well, this rips it out, gets stuck into the endothelial lining of your blood vessels, and then this whole kind of inflammatory response starts to happen. So for me, I now produce that. Remember how they said it wasn't going to do that? It wasn't going to become part of your DNA, couldn't do that. Well, you actually now produce spike. It was supposed to actually be a defense mechanism to keep you from getting ill. And now it's one of the things that when we draw labs, we can actually see who's actually in more of a crisis, who's more ill. The higher the levels, the higher the inflammatory markers, the more ill the person is. I have yet to see an unvaccinated person under 150. When I was at my sickest, I was 850, I think, when I had myocarditis. That's a whole other story. But we see people in the thousands upon thousands now. But the interesting thing is we see these are markers for the vaccinated. We see the unvaccinated are having similar markers now. But for me, I take certain medications that help. As I'm producing it, my body binds it and it clears it out. So the minute I started taking it, my kids were less sick. They were constantly having sore throat, upper respiratory, infections, COVID-like symptoms.
So you're saying that you felt you were carrying that then?
Yeah,
You were.
I was.
Okay.
It was constant chronic illness in our family. Like it was just nonstop for months after months. And I started it January of last year. It's kind of been a constant, okay, let's see what works. We're just basically trying to navigate the FLCC protocol, alter it, and see what's kind of working for me. So far, it's working. I was in a pretty bad condition as of July of this last summer. Pretty bad. Standing up in church was difficult. Just communicating was difficult. I lost my train of thought within just a couple seconds. I had problems speaking, slurring my words. And then I started a different protocol. And I got my words back within about a week and a half. And when I say my words back, it was almost like an expressive speech aphasia. So like I couldn't see the word actually in my head. I no longer could see a picture of a car before I said car. I couldn't find these words. But a week and a half after being on a protocol, I felt better. My feet were no longer killing me. My hands weren't killing me. Oh gosh, can't even. My tachycardia got better. Yeah.
You were quite a mess. I do remember seeing you a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Non-communicative.
So I'm trying to put all this together to try and understand it, right? Okay. So you're way far ahead of me and having all of this kind of mapped out in your head. So the coronavirus obviously is a coronavirus, just like is on the label of a bottle of Lysol. Mm-hmm. It's a virus that looks like a crown. Mm-hmm. This is nothing new, right? They called it a novel coronavirus because it was supposed to be, I guess, more prolific or powerful, or I don't know, whatever. Anyways,
new,
novel would be new. Yeah. So, the solution to the novel coronavirus in the vaccine was to, and let me know if I've got this wrong because I'm trying to figure it out, right? So the solution was for the vaccine to alter your mRNA so that your body would begin to produce spike proteins that would attach to the coronavirus. How does that, talk us through like the process, because it was the thing is that it was supposed to be safe and effective. This is all you heard. Safe and effective. It was going to stop the spread. Well, now what we're hearing is that it's not only is it not safe, but it hasn't stopped the spread. In fact, may have made it worse.
No, it has actually made it worse, but it's hard to rationalize what we've been told and what I know from my education on how vaccines are supposed to work.
Well, elucidate us, because you have to assume that we're all idiots here.
Well, but you also have to realize that we weren't told how it works. So yeah, it was supposed to work like a vaccine. It was supposed to produce something that would then neutralize whatever we were being exposed to somehow. Or initially it was you were never supposed to get sick. Then it was, well, now you just won't get as sick.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? Or you're never going to die. And it constantly changed. So elucidating something that I don't think that we actually have been told the truth about, I can't really go into too much detail other than based off of what I was told. It was theoretically supposed to work similar to other vaccines, and it was not supposed to integrate with our DNA. And it actually integrates with our DNA. We produce the spike protein. I'm assuming I'm going to produce it for the rest of my life. That's pretty much that's what I know. I wish I knew more, but if I start going into the woods on this, I'm going to probably start going down some rabbit holes and doing some conspiracy theories, and I don't think I want to do that with you.
But there's got to be a way to understand how the science works, right? So without, obviously something's going in your body.
Yeah.
Something's causing you to produce spike proteins. What is the thing that's causing you to produce spike proteins that you weren't producing before? Obviously the vaccine, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So,
but the actual contracting of the disease, you get spike. So, like I said, I wish I could elucidate more on it. I don't feel comfortable elucidating on something where I feel like I've been lied to. So I can't really go into detail. This was the thing that I was told, it's not supposed to integrate with your DNA. It's supposed to help you produce antibodies so that when you get exposed to COVID, you then have the antibodies, and then you and originally I was told I won't get sick when I first got vaccinated. Then we all know, like I just said, it then shifted to, okay, you produce the antibodies, which is the spike, I guess. And you're just not going to get as sick. But the problem is everybody knows how a virus works, is they're constantly evolving. Viruses constantly evolve, and viruses evolve in actually a specific pattern. A virus goes from being probably more lethal at the beginning and harder to contract to less lethal and easier to contract. So they had us convinced at the very beginning it was extremely lethal and extremely easy to contract, which was one of the reasons why they got everybody to sign up for this.
And
yeah, so that's probably the best I can do in explaining it, because I just don't feel like we've been given the entire truth on how it works. So I'm basically constantly, throughout the beginning, was given the information that you would receive in a vaccination class, in a graduate level vaccination course, or in a medical course, and you're going, okay, that makes sense. That sounds
so
like
the COVID itself creates the spike protein. Is that what I heard?
COVID kind of is
spike. The spike protein. Okay.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's the spike.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it can tear up the lining of your...
It does a lot of wonderful things to the body. Yeah, it does a lot of amazing things. And as far as the vaccinated is concerned, I don't know if you guys got a particular order in which you're wanting to go in. It's just recently we've found out that those who are vaccinated that have telltale signs of the vaccine, especially if they were vaccinated in the left arm, and had more kind of an inflammatory reaction, are having a different, how do I put this? Different initial symptoms post-vaccine and long-term. And what they found out is that the heart is typically runs on a fatty acid metabolism. And those that were vaccinated, especially in the left arm, that they had severe symptoms right after, their heart shifts from a fatty acid metabolism to a glucose metabolism, which in medicine we know when the heart switches to a glucose metabolism, it's a disease metabolism. So it's beautiful in the sense that you now have cardiac disease, sudden onset of cardiac disease, and a rapid cardiac disease potentially happening. So what does that mean? It doesn't look like Spike did it. It doesn't look like COVID did it. It looks like these people that are dying potentially had really horrible diets and a really unhealthy lifestyle. But the problem is that there's 1,000% increase in cardiac disease and death in military pilots. Some of the safest, smartest, healthiest people that we know.
Yeah,
so
it seems like it would be easy to trace it down to some kind of comorbidity, but that just doesn't seem to be what's happening. It's like that's not an indicator, comorbidity. I mean, I've watched some of the videos, and these people look pretty darn healthy. Some of them, especially, the interesting thing is some of the people, even from like Asian countries, which typically Asians have a pretty decent diet. You know, I mean, it's like it doesn't make a lot of sense that folks from the East are just like dropping dead like crazy, but it's what's happening. I mean, if you watch some of these videos, they're just walking down the street, minding their own business, no big deal. Then all of a sudden they're just like instantly drop dead. It's like, yeah, something is going on. That's for sure.
And you mentioned left arm versus right arm vaccination. Is that because it's closer to the heart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a ton of nerves in the chest wall. So that in and alone is a scary thing. I have severe nerve damage in my left arm, and initially in the days, probably within the first year and a half, 2 years. I know it's been only 3 years, but it's taken a while for me to wrap my brain around it. Even as a practitioner, I go through a whole process. I'm like, okay, can I replicate this pain? So I push on my body. If I push on my body, then I know it's nerves. I know it's nerves that are causing, if it's repeatable or replicable, I can't even say it. Thank you. Pain. Then I go, okay, now I work through my cardiac workup. I'm going, okay, in my head, I'm thinking, is this GI? Is this this? Is this that? And so that's helped me. But the problem is that the vast majority of the people that I deal with don't know that.
Yeah.
And they're going through the same thing that I am. And they're like, I've just constantly got chest pain. I've got chest pain all the time. There's so many nerves in your chest wall, in your armpit, in your arm. You have no idea that cause pain. So, people are probably just going to the hospital thinking it. The EKGs show nothing. I can attest to that. I've probably had hundreds upon hundreds of EKGs. It's like a 3-minute window into what that person's experiencing, and good luck to find something in that 3-minute window.
Yeah. So what were you and what are you finding in your blood right now?
So, wow.
And this is like, I've seen the pictures, right?
Yeah.
So I know what it looks like. It's bonkers. Unreal.
So,
But
I mean, mine, let's see if I can get this out here. Mine, I was actually at a fellow colleague's house, and we were looking through her microscope, and she actually was the one that found my initial, I don't know what to call some of these, because I actually sent them to pathologists, and they're like,
Fibrous anomaly.
some of them aren't even, how would you describe that? Some of these, Craig? Some of them look like weapons. No, I'm being 100% serious.
Some look like little strings, polymer. You call them filaments.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are metallic.
Is this under a microscope or
Under a
is
microscope.
this okay?
Some of them look like
Some of them are metallic. You said
A lot of them are
microchips, like
metallic-y.
yeah, there's
What is their makeup?
yeah, that's one of the fibrous ones, huh?
That's one of the fibrous ones.
Yeah, so what we're seeing here is we're seeing a microscopic shot of what's in her blood, and there's this like long fibrous
The
kind of
red blood cells
anomaly
are,
in there. It's like it's
the red blood cells surrounding it. This is most likely graphene oxide.
wow.
The red blood cells are they're in a state called rouleau.
So what is the makeup of what I'm looking at right now, which looks like a piece of tinfoil?
Yeah, it's most likely graphene oxide, which is a sheet of carbon. It's how would you describe graphene oxide? It's a metal, but it's a not metal.
yeah, it's just a
It's
formation of.
but it's 100.
it's a graphite,
It's
so it's
100
more like a
times-
mineral.
It's 100 times stronger than iron, is what I've been told. But it conducts electricity really well.
Hmm.
So,
question: is that supposed to be there?
no,
Not at all.
nature
Zero.
doesn't make squares in our body.
Wait, no?
No, nature
Just-
does not make squares.
Huh.
I'm trying to find the one. I'm out of my. If you can find it, honey, while I'm talking, the one with that looks like almost a knife. Yeah.
And you are attributing this to the vaccine and not to COVID.
No, both.
Both.
I mean, I can't attribute it, how do I put this? So, I've got patients that literally live up in the mountains. They have no Wi-Fi. They have the living with candles. They're literally
They're
100%
off
off the grid, and they're coming down with this stuff. Explain that to me. They've never had COVID, and then they come down, and then this one gentleman that I've worked with, his blood samples actually weren't that bad. So he's like, oh, maybe I can come out a little bit more. And then he comes back to me, a few weeks later, and he looks even worse. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to, I'm going to fast, and I'm going to do all these things. And he couldn't get it out. So, but yeah, some of these structures they defy logic. Like, you can't really see this one, but this one's from an unvaxxed person. I have a lot of really weird things in my unvaxxed population, and when these are sent out to pathologists, they're finding carbon, polymers, graphene oxide, and hydrogel.
What is hydrogel?
Hydrogel is a component that it was like part of the delivery system of the vaccine. Don't have me go too much into detail, but because a lot of it, there's some conspiracy involved in as far as what's in it, what it does. But from what I've seen, it does some pretty amazing things. We've seen
Amazing good or amazing bad?
We've seen things in it that defy any explanation. Lights that are blinking. Within minutes, start producing structures, square-like
Lights
structures.
that are
Yes.
blinking.
So you seem to be alluding to the fact that this hydrogel contained nanites of some type.
Yeah, I am. I'm just not wanting to go in.
It's okay. We live in Idaho. This is the
Okay.
land of conspiracy. So
Okay.
it's okay. People don't have to agree.
Yeah.
I find myself being extremely skeptical about things as well.
This was an example of a filament from my blood, and Craig found the lights. I've heard them called the lights of self-assembly quantum dots, things like that, and it produced that hot pink square that's forming in the bottom corner. Or if you can see,
our next show is going to be on chemtrails because I think that's where all this is coming.
Do you get to pick your color, or is it like
no,
just kinda pick their own color?
I had an unvaxxed lady came in the other day, and we were going, what the heck? I asked her, do you drink green drinks? Do you drink lots of chlorophyll? Because I just couldn't figure out in my mind why these structures, and hers are like folded ribbons is what they look like, have chunks of what looks like green algae all over it. But I find them, they're purple, they're blue, hot pink, they're bright red. But the one defining thing about a lot of these is that they are bioluminescent.
So that's where the light is coming from. You're not saying that these nanites are like,
No.
if that's a thing, that they're creating like LEDs or anything in there. That these are bioluminescent to a degree.
So there are little white dots, yellow dots, and some of them are actually different colors that are kind of floating and going against the current. Because as you drop a drop of blood on a slide, a current forms. These little guys move up against the current. They move away from the red blood cells. They move in, but they're doing things. They're constructing things. They're busy the whole entire time, and you're having to follow them and watch. Okay, where are they going? What are they doing?
Is there any or do you know of anybody that's doing any kind of research into this that might have like video footage of these things?
Well, we have video footage of it, but it's not that great. I cannot pronounce this woman's name, and I don't want to kind of go into it on the broad podcast, but
Sure.
I can tell you afterwards. But yeah, no, there's lots of people. I just there's once you kind of get your name out there, I think you open yourself up to some crazy stuff. So I can give you some links if you'd like. But yeah, we've seen them, but these puddles, these hydrogel puddles that we see, you see them in the unvax, you see them in the vax. They're not normal. They don't look like bubbles up underneath the cover. They have bioluminescent rims to them, and there's some certain things that have been not copyrighted. What's trademarked by a few of the people who have produced these, and there's a specific name to one of them, which I'm sure you've heard, as to the bioluminescent quality. Luciferase is one of them. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, these actually go into detail. You can actually read about them on the internet, and it's possible that that's what this is. I don't know, but all I know is it shouldn't be there.
What you know is you're seeing it.
Whatever
it is, you're seeing it.
I'm seeing it. I'm able to distinguish between artifact and something that's actually like artifact is in a hair on the slide, dust, a bubble, an air bubble, versus something that's actually got some sort of quality that's producing something. You leave it, you come back, and there's something growing there. Things are happening in dry samples. Shoot, the person that worked on my blood in March of last year, we looked underneath a sample, and it moved 1 year. Another one of our samples, the product in there moved 1 year later under light.
Wow.
1 year later. So there's a light sensitivity. I don't know if it's stimulative. I don't know what. At the same time, I've seen stuff under my microscope that when it gets too hot, I'm assuming because of the light, they can literally disappear. They break down. So it doesn't like UV light is what I'm hearing from other people. But the actual spike protein's really hard to see. It's really small in comparison to like a red blood cell. Red blood cell is, I think, 7,000 nanometers, and Spike is, oh gosh, maybe in the tens, like maybe 9 or 10. You can't see it. So
Teeny tiny.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff you get on the internet and they're like, oh, look we found spike protein, and it's not spike protein. They're basically disfigured red blood cells called acanthocytes that basically when there's an unhealthy process going on, it can look like it. Yeah.
So there's enough people out there that are seeing something, and there's enough people crying wolf that
yeah, that's my concern.
It's kind of masking what's true and what's not true, and
yeah,
it is kind of the curse of the internet.
Yeah.
Kind of now, because people that don't really know what they're talking about can go on and just start saying a bunch of stuff, and yeah, it ends up being a new conspiracy. And then it's like you layer on enough conspiracies, and then all of a sudden it's
people
like,
don't believe it.
well, that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. So how does this tie in with what they're physically seeing in, like, without microscopes? Because I've seen the video footage of them pulling out these fibrous clots out of people's veins, or corpses' veins, and things like that. Are those things associated somehow, or is that just a completely different thing?
Yeah. So I mean, causation. Correlation doesn't mean causation. Thank you. So just something we're wanting to kind of correlate the two.
Right.
Doesn't mean that's the cause of it. The reality is you have to realize this is happening in stagnant blood, that all these autopsies are happening. So we don't know if the clots are forming post-mortem and they're pulling them out. But here's the reality of it. We've never pulled these out of people.
Yeah.
So
Dead or alive.
What's going on. But what we have seen, and what I have seen, is that when we're doing a blood draw and we're putting it in a centrifuge, we're finding them left and right, and then I go from that, because nobody believes those are hydrogel polymer clots. Nobody wants to believe that, so I go the next step and I do what I call a sitting clot test, where I actually draw enough blood and let it sit anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. And so if it doesn't develop in that, then there's a level of kind of safety in that, in my mind. But the reality is we're just seeing things we've never seen before. Never seen this before. And it's a sudden onset.
Yeah, it was just like right after COVID, all of a sudden we start seeing all this stuff.
And what you're seeing, what they're pulling out, I mean, this is literally what I'm pulling out when it's rubbery. It's almost to the point of tenderness. Like you can actually see the fibers. When I put it under my microscope, I can see the fibers in it. So I don't know. I don't know if this was a side effect, or if it was planned at this point. I'm skeptical about everything.
Well, that it came out of a lab in China kind of makes you feel like it was weaponized to a degree, for sure.
Yeah, but the thing is that we've got so many plastics and polymers in our body. Is this planned? Is this by chance? This whole graphene oxide situation. I'm seeing some real crazy stuff coming out about that right now, and I'm seeing just the level of metallics in people's blood I've never seen to the degree that I'm seeing chunks of squares. I mean, his had a ton of it yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's scientists that are actually looking at the chemical structures of dental anesthetics. Sorry.
Get ready, Ken.
There I can. Lantus insulin and different steroids and, local anesthetics, and just medications in general. And they're finding components that are similar to what we're finding under the microscope. Very kind of.
Seems like everything that you just mentioned might be a candidate to have hydrogel in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's there. But the good thing is there's also dentists and physicians that are waking up and they're looking at it before they inject it in their patients now. So there's just not enough of them. I mean, you show this to a dentist. I talked to my last dentist, which I'm, not going to anymore. I mention this because of my, what I do and what I've been through, and I just got totally blown off. I want to see interest. I want to see that my professors told me being a scientist is like being a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, depending on how your kids were. You're supposed to say, but why? But why? But why? But why? And you're supposed to say that about everything. You question everything.
Well,
Nothing
science quit being about that a long time ago.
Well, science has turned into a religion, but nothing is set in science. Everything is open for discussion.
That's why they're theories.
Yeah, that's exactly. So I don't know. I wish I had the clue. My job right now isn't to find out the why.
But it's not necessarily that, because when you look at a movie like the one that we had watched, it was Died Suddenly was the one that we watched, and in that one they kind of put the two together, like these fibers equals vaccine, but that may not necessarily be 100% true. I mean, it could be a variety of factors that are causing these things that all kind of surfaced around the time of COVID.
And that are still happening right now.
And are still happening. And so, and you're right. I mean, we don't know exactly how all this is working together. I mean, most people don't even understand the level of microplastics that they have in their body, just breathing. And so, there's a lot of things going on in there that it could all just be, it may be that these guys in this Wuhan lab were not sitting around thinking to themselves, well, the WEF has instructed us to make a thing that creates spike proteins to create clots in people's bloodstream. So let's make sure we get the virus so that we could get that out to people. I mean, that would be the easy pathway, but it may be a lot more complicated than that.
Well, I think that's what it is. I don't know what they were trying to do, but I think creating something where the population dies and every death or most death look like natural causes is genius.
Yeah.
Who's the killer then?
Yeah. Yeah. And then even when COVID was happening and then everybody was like, all the numbers were just like through the roof. It's like, if you got into a motorcycle accident, it's like, oh, he died from COVID. Yeah. It's like
got hit by a bus. I remember that one.
Yeah. It was really kind of wild how it got promulgated. And not everybody was like in on it. I think that's another mistake that a lot of people make is they kind of create these massive, vast conspiracies where all these people were in on it. And that's just not the case. Your doctor probably did not get a call from the WEF and say, hey, we want you to administer this vaccine, right? I mean, that probably did not happen. But in his well-meaning, he probably did what he thought was right. And maybe he was wrong, and so
I think there's some of that, but you're also seeing a lot of incentivization for people to do the wrong thing, whether it's money, your career advancement, or the other. They threaten your position. So I mean, there's a lot of coercion I think that's going on as well. So you either toe the line or you don't. I don't mean to get into
I totally get that, right? Like coercion, like by employers or coercion by
anybody. So you're I watched some of the things that she looks at, and if somebody says something that's not with the current agenda, they're gone. So
we were listening to one of the podcasts that you had given us prior to coming in here. And this guy, he basically had tons of statistics and broke it all down to that the pandemic lasted 9 weeks, and that was it. And the rest of it was just all the rhetoric that went along with that, and the money that went along with that.
Oh,
And I heard this, didn't research it, but if a patient died of COVID at the hospital was receiving a certain amount of funds.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy basically was showing, yep, this is what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some coercion of some sort, going on. But, I kind of side with Chris a lot of times, man. Some of these conspiracy theories, they're too big. There's too many people that would have to be involved, and somebody's going to blow the whistle.
At some level, it has to be brought down into a microcosm, because it like, say for instance, like something like the Earth is round, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you would have to get every space agency on the planet to agree that we're going to deceive the general public in order to make this happen. And these are countries that can't even agree on basic policy, much less deceive a populace about the shape of the globe, right? And I know that seems like a maybe a silly kind of concept, but it to me, it brings into sharp relief this idea that we just have to be really careful. I'm not saying that you have to throw it out. I'm just saying that when you hear this stuff, you have to be really careful about how quickly you latch onto it. And I appreciate your candor and your you're not really like, I got to get on there and push my conspiracy that I really support, because oftentimes with conspiracies, it's the data is mixed in with a lot of anecdotal evidence, and it becomes problematic to try and say this is the solution, which is kind of what people do.
That's been the hardest thing throughout this, is because, I mean, I know what's happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've watched it happen.
It was instantaneous.
I felt like I felt like I had a different body, and I explained this. I felt like, and there were periods where I explained this to my healthcare provider, where I felt like I was on fire internally, and I still have bouts of that, but because maybe friends or family members, they went and got theirs, and there are no problems, so they don't believe me.
Yeah.
They flat out don't believe me, and they go and get another one, and they get another one, and it's painful for me to watch, because it's like telling somebody not to walk into a burning building.
Yeah, it's like it's like they think that you're just kind of making it up.
Yeah, like, I have no reason to make this up. I want my life back the way it was. I want to be able to run without fear that I'm going to have a heart attack. I mean, this time last year, December of 22, I got COVID pneumonia. They kept telling me, "Oh, it's not COVID pneumonia. It's not COVID pneumonia," even though, like, my COVID markers came back elevated, and I had all the telltale symptoms in my lungs of,
But don't worry, it's not going to be as bad.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be as bad. It was scary. They thought I was having a pulmonary embolism, but by February, I was in supraventricular tachycardia and a heart block, and I know what I've been through, and I know, and that's, for me, that's probably been the worst thing out of this whole thing, is one, not being believed, being labeled a conspiracy theorist, not having the support of the people that I care about and love the most. And it's real simple to me. I'm cut and dry. Like, you either believe me and what caused this. You don't get to believe me and say, "Oh yeah, we believe that you're sick." Because to me, it's like, I feel like I'm just trying to sit here and fight and stay around as long as I can for my kids. But I know what caused this. I know who did this to me. I know my killer. I might not be dead yet, but I know it, and I want to tell people, don't do this. It's not worth it. Don't do any more. If you can stop doing it, stop doing it. The statistical data from the military, oh gosh, was it 2022? And I can't remember the name of it, puts together this article, and then this article reports to the CDC. Well, the article stated that basically, I think it was like 77% or 70% of the people being hospitalized were actually the vaxxed, and 60% of the deaths, I'm guesstimating this right now, that were dying in hospital were the vaxxed.
Yeah.
This was in this 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's gotten better?
I have
It's
no
not.
idea.
No, it's not. I mean, they're still pushing remdesivir in the local. They're still pushing the same things. It's just amazing because, a few decades ago, Fauci decided to dig up the Spanish flu victims. They were in the permafrost in Alaska. Let's find out how these guys died. I mean, they're all wearing cotton masks. They all died of the Spanish flu. Well, he found out they didn't all die of the Spanish flu. The vast majority of them died of a bacterial condition or bacterial pneumonia. So potentially from the masks. I don't want to say that because I looked at every article. Since that's come to light, they've now really washed the internet to kind of fix that. But the reality is that the treatments were potentially for back then were in antibiotics, which they didn't have available. Mm-hmm. So they knew that going into this pandemic, that a virus of that kind of nature, a secondary infection and bacterial infections could potentially lead to greater death numbers. So let's hold off on the antibiotics. Let's give them an antiviral that I think they use for Ebola. They did test on Ebola. It killed like 75% of the people that used it.
Wow.
And let's push this. And my grandfather that passed away, they told us they called the day before he died. They said, yeah, he tested positive for COVID. He didn't test positive for COVID. They gave him the COVID vaccine that day. But by saying he tested positive for COVID, they collected $13,000. So
that was happening. I mean, they were definitely receiving money for COVID diagnosis.
You want people to get diagnosed. You want to keep them in the hospital. You want to give them the most extensive treatments possible. Treatments that go completely against what we were taught in medicine. What do you not do to somebody with pneumonia that's sick? You don't lay them on their back where the mass majority of their lung tissue is. You don't lay them on your back, stick a tube in their mouth, sedate them, and hope for the best. You don't do that. You get them up. You get them moving. You get them breathing. You get respiratory. All the respiratory therapists were like, why the heck are we doing this? This goes against everything we were taught. Mm-hmm. Antibiotics and viruses, they might not work, but...
So who was making those decisions to make that the format by which you treat these? Was that coming from Fauci and the CDC?
Yeah.
Okay, so the CDC was basically determining this is the treatment path.
And then they're incentivizing the hospitals, and unfortunately, when you live in an area with a hospital that's not doing very well, they're very incentivized. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I at the point where I first caught COVID September 11th, 2021. I remember it, and I knew exactly what I had.
After you were vaccinated?
After I was vaccinated, 6 months later, I think it was a pretty severe case of COVID, too. I was the worst out of the whole family. I mean, it was brutal, 2 full weeks. We found out almost instantaneously if we were up, walking, and in sunlight. Our symptoms improved drastically, and they were wanting for me to do the what was it? What was that treatment again?
Oh,
sorry.
Well, that's interesting
the
because
injections in the legs and arms.
Yeah. But basically, you were standing up, getting your airways moving, and exposing yourself to UV light.
Yep, it was amazing. As soon as we laid down, we felt sick. And we were a mess. And we're like, okay, we got to get up. We got to get up. We got to get breathing. We got to, do there's breathing exercises, deep breathing exercises you can do. And honestly, how do you starve a virus or a bacteria? You don't feed it. You don't feed it sugar. So you go on a low carbohydrate diet, you pound vitamin C, you the things that you would think of is what you do. So that's what we did. Everybody in our house did.
What about hydration?
Oh, that's important, obviously. Yeah.
Because when I had COVID, I went through 2 weeks. I got to the last day and said, I'm done. Get me to the hospital.
Yeah.
Went to the hospital, went in, IV, hydration, sitting up in bed, sitting up in a wheelchair the whole time. And an hour later, I was like, let's go.
I know, it's amazing what IV fluids can do to a person. But yeah.
And it was gone after that. There was no other symptoms. I just thought that was kind of weird. But you mentioned 2 weeks. 2 weeks seemed to be the gestation period.
That was the Omicron. That was that. That was a pretty bad, or was it Delta? I can't remember.
Yeah, who
I think
can
it was
keep
Delta.
track of it anymore?
I think it was Delta. I don't know. They don't name them anymore. At least.
Well, that's the point.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't name them. They're already working on the next one probably. So, yeah.
So, we got to start wrapping it up here. So one of the things that I did want to ask is, you are into something called dark field microscopy. Microscopy.
Yeah.
Okay. What is that?
It's just a specific type of way to look at objects, blood, under, I don't want to say specific type of microscope. It's a specific type of condenser that we use for a microscope. It just really highlights the things that you would not normally see in the blood.
Okay, so it's about contrasting.
It's a contrast. So you see it on a black background versus a white, and since these things are highly bioluminescent, they just pop right up.
Okay, so how does that work? Is it like built into the microscope itself, like it can reverse contrast, or
so
is
no?
it like
The condenser. Well, it depends, I guess. For the microscope you get, if you get a really nice microscope, the one that I want, it's all built
Christmas.
in. No, it's like a car. But anyways, no, it's removable off the bottom. You just have to constantly recalibrate it. It's a pain in the butt.
But this is like a technology that already existed, correct?
Yeah,
so it's not like it's a new emerging technology.
It is, and the irony is they're trying to make it. There's talk about trying to make dark field microscopy difficult to get for the average person. Why?
That's interesting.
I heard that conversation the other day, and I was like, why would they want that? This is a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how much truth there is to that, but just a couple people saying it made me go,
It's interesting. So the if a person starts exhibiting any of those kind of symptoms, like where do you turn? Like if you can't trust your medical professionals and you can't trust your government and you can't trust, if these are fears that you have, is there any place that a person can go where they can get looked at and get an honest evaluation of what's going on with their blood, what's going on with their body? Is there any place like that? I know that you guys work at a clinic that deals with some COVID injury that's attached to the clinic there in Hayden. What's the name of that again?
So I almost don't want to. So our clinic is North Idaho Integrative Medicine. We're in the process of working all that whole legal stuff out with the Idaho Board of Medicine to where we can provide all the things we want to. And that will have dark field microscopy, and what we're hoping to be is the place, the kind of one-stop shop where you can go and have the treatments that you would need: hyperbaric oxygen therapy, red light sauna, clear light sauna in particular.
These would be as a result of COVID?
COVID, both COVID vaccinated and unvaccinated exposed typically. as well as like high dose vitamin C, EDTA chelation, maybe at some point a machine called EBU, extracorporeal blood oxygenation and ozone. It's kind of a filtration system, and it goes through UV light and ozoning, and it people that are highly unvaxxed with a lot of this, I'll just call it for this say particulate whatever, and you actually see it in the filter when you're done. It pulls it out. Hopefully that, and then we work. Yes, with a very freedom-minded clinic. I will just say that without having to say the name. A very freedom-minded clinic in Hayden with practitioners that believe their patients have a love for the Holy Spirit, take care of their patients, and are helping to treat the long-term consequences of both being vaccinated and having long hauler COVID-like symptoms.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well said.
They're already talking about what pandemics are coming up. I mean, I'm already hearing all of this.
Yep. We're getting ready for them.
What are the best ways that people can prepare to be ready for that in the event that something else comes down the line?
How to prepare. So on the short end, and then we'll do short end first, then we'll do more kind of like like little things that you kind of need to do. So short end, I would say, obviously the worst, when a pandemic hits, the places you don't want to be. You don't want to be at a grocery store. You don't want to be at a pharmacy. You don't want to be at a gas station. Just use your head. Think. So have enough food, and supplies to not have to go anywhere for a while, because it's going to work itself out in the towns pretty quick. They're going to start going out into the rural communities. Medication-wise, you should have your medications. If you see on your bottle it says refills 4, and it's an as needed medication, go get your as needed medication. Fill up your refills so that you have a stockpile of the things you have. Make sure you have, if you have a heart condition, if you have hypertension, make sure you have your lisinopril, make sure you have your metoprolol, all the things you're gonna need. Stock up on that. Number one thing that kills kids is dehydration and diarrhea. So make sure you have ways to hydrate your children. I'm not a big fan of some of those, but make sure you have them. You can dilute those. Stock up on them. Have your Tylenol, your ibuprofen. Definitely have aspirin. Gonna need lots of aspirin. Know your blood type. Know your blood type. If we expect what's going to be happening to happen, you will need to know your blood type and every blood type in your family member. There's actually blood type kits you can buy on online if you don't want to go out and pay for it. Know it. As far as medical supplies, a lot of people don't have access to the stuff that I have access to. But if you can have the skill set to give an IV fluids and be able to do those kinds of things, that's really helpful. Obviously,
I'm sure there's a YouTube video for.
I'm sure
putting
there's
in an IV.
I'm sure there's a YouTube video, but I got a feeling if the world's going hell in a handbasket, then YouTube might not be available.
Yeah.
So, paper books might actually be your friend at some point. But I mean, invest in some skills now while you can. Bushcrafting, exactly. Women need to know how to protect themselves. The men are going to have to go off and forage and find food and do things. So we need to know how to protect ourselves, protect our kids, and to be honest, homeschooling, I know that sounds kind of weird. it's getting your kids out when if you have the means now is great. They're at home. You can teach them the things they know. They can be self-sufficient, highly educated at the same times, and they can be participants and helpers in growing your food and the things that you need to do. But as far as the next pandemic, rumors have it it's going to be more of a like a, oh gosh, what did I call it the other day? A hemorrhagic type thing is what a lot of them keep saying.
Hemorrhoids?
No.
You're in good shape, Greg.
I could do this.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no, not like hemorrhoids. Oh.
No.
Tucks.
So there's really not a lot of treatments for that. If that's the case, if that's the one they choose,
it would be blood-based.
You would need packed red blood cells and platelets and things like that. So a person-to-person transfusion. A lot of people don't want Vax blood, but like I said, invest in learning how to do these things for yourself and your family. Mm-hmm. And there are ways to get a hold of these products. You just have to, really do your investigating online. And
a great place to start is definitely knowing your blood type and what blood types can go where.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a good idea to put the wrong blood type in somebody.
Yeah,
That's pretty much instant. Yeah. And
there's a reason they exist. Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Conversation over.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're running out of time, but you guys have any last words? There's a lot more we could talk about, obviously. We could go on for 3-4 hours on this, but
I had one quick thing. You had mentioned that the doctor that was diagnosing you initially whispered to you, don't stop taking your aspirin. Is that because it's a blood thinner and it's going to help you?
So it's an antiplatelet aggregator. It keeps your platelets from sticking together for the life of that platelet from when you take that medication. So
anybody who's having heart issues are going to be taking aspirin, right?
Yeah. So I take my 81 milligrams aspirin every day, but when I heard that, I was like taking a little too much. Yeah, it freaked me out, but it didn't end up getting in my medical record. That whisper didn't, and I didn't see that doctor again, and I don't know who that person was because they ended up having a high turnover there at that hospital. But
it's almost like he knew something.
Yeah,
that's what he was telling me. Yeah. And he also said, he goes, it was good you took that Benadryl. He goes, I really think
that helped.
Yeah, I didn't have that acute possible reaction that maybe some other people did. But aspirin's a good thing, I guess. I wouldn't overdo it.
No, 81 a day.
Well, I think I would say, obviously, churches, people in our community, we need to be kind of aware of what's going on, preparing to help people, because that's what we do. But I really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your story and what you've experienced. I think that the experience is way more important. And nobody likes to go down pathways like this, but what Satan intended for evil, God intended for good. And, if you have people that are experiencing these things, you're experiencing them for a reason. And if it is to bring light to what is happening in darkness, then that's a noble endeavor. And so, I appreciate you having the courage to come out and say something and to at least share with us what you've been through. Like I said, there's a lot more we can get into. And obviously, our listeners, we want you to, make decisions, and learn things. And, you should never really take any one person's, estimation of what's going on and turn that into fact just because somebody said it. Do your research, kind of like what you're doing, go in and read and study what it's all about. And that's kind of the way that knowledge works. And so, this is a good start for people, and maybe it'll inspire people to be like, I need to look a little bit more into this. It's like, I would really like to know how it all ties together. But that it's going to take work. You know, you got to go out and you got to get all that stuff done. And so
It's hard to find that.
yeah.
I don't know if we'll ever find the why and how they've done what they've done, but you know, Craig and I, like we said, trying to find perspective in this is I'm here now.
Yeah.
He's got me here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say if I was going to tell somebody something is what my grandpa used to say to me is a smart person learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from other mistakes. So learn.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to go back and do it over again. But that being said, you know, God makes something beautiful out of all things. So,
Yeah.
I think that's what he's doing right now, what he's trying to do right now. But it's not my job to figure out the why. I can't figure out the why. I feel like what God's called me to do right now and Craig is we're here to patch the troops up because stuff's coming.
Yeah.
So it's our job to get the troops, our brothers and sisters in Christ, get them as ready as possible, get them healed up, because it's not going to get easier from here on out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Well, that about does it for us today. As always, thank you for joining us. If you have a comment or a question or an idea for an episode, send us an email at 3p@athelbaptistchurch.org. Ken is waiting with bated breath to receive your emails. If your idea gets used on the show, you could be the proud recipient of the now world-famous 3P coffee mug endorsed by Donald Trump himself. You've seen our emails. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks to ABC and its members for their generous support of this ministry. And again, thank you for listening. And until next time, remember the Great Commission. Go into all the world, reach the lost with the gospel, and build disciples who can do the same. And with that, we are out.